Every U.S. president has faced pressure, but not every president has faced scandal. From corruption and cover-ups to sex, surveillance, and war, these are the scandals that defined presidencies and, in some cases, ended them. And no scandal shaped that legacy more than the one that gave us the term "gate" in the first place. It started with a burglary, but it ended with the presidency unraveling. On June 17, 1972, 5 men were caught breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate office complex. What looked like petty theft was soon traced back to the committee to re-elect the president, a group loyal to Richard Nixon. Instead of distancing himself, Nixon doubled down. His White House offered hush money to the burglars and tried to block the FBI investigation by involving the CIA, a move that would later be revealed through secret tape recordings. The tapes recorded in the Oval Office were damning. One conversation dated June 23, 1972, showed Nixon instructing his chief of staff to interfere with the FBI's inquiry. Facing near-certain impeachment and the loss of Republican support, Nixon resigned on August 8, 1974. He became the first and only U.S. president to do so. But while Nixon fell because of domestic surveillance and a cover-up, the next scandal would see a president's team going behind Congress's back and beyond American borders. Officially, the U.S. government did not negotiate with terrorists. Unofficially, Reagan's administration did just that. In the mid-1980s, the Reagan White House secretly arranged the sale of weapons to Iran, a country under an arms embargo, and designated as a state sponsor of terrorism. In return, they hoped to secure the release of American hostages in Lebanon. But that wasn't the end of the plan. The profits from those illegal arms sales were then funneled to the Contras, a right-wing rebel group in Nicaragua, fighting the socialist Sandinista government. There was just one problem. Congress had explicitly prohibited funding the Contras through the Boland Amendment. Once the operation was exposed in 1986, the fallout was enormous. The scandal revealed a hidden foreign policy being run out of the National Security Council. Reagan claimed he didn't recall key details, and key documents were destroyed before investigators could get them. Several officials, including Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, were indicted. Some were convicted, though many later received pardons from President George H.W. Bush. The scandal showed how far a president's team could go under the guise of patriotism. But while Reagan avoided direct blame, the next president would face a scandal that was undeniably personal and undeniably public. Bill Clinton's presidency was already under scrutiny for past financial dealings in the Whitewater real estate controversy. But in 1998, the focus shifted dramatically to his relationship with a 22-year-old White House intern named Monica Lewinsky. The affair wasn't just about personal conduct. It became a legal issue when Clinton, during a sworn deposition in a separate sexual harassment lawsuit, denied having sexual relations with Lewinsky. But when Lewinsky's friend Linda Tripp handed over tapes of their private conversations, and when a blue dress with Clinton's DNA surfaced, it became clear he had lied under oath. Clinton was impeached by the House of Representatives on 2 charges: perjury and obstruction of justice. He was acquitted in the Senate in early 1999, remaining in office. But the scandal consumed his second term and reshaped public trust in the presidency. And while Clinton's scandal was about lying under oath, the next would be about something arguably more dangerous: selling a lie to the entire world. After the September 11th attacks, President George W. Bush had sky-high approval ratings and a united nation behind him. But in 2003, he used that moment to justify a full-scale invasion of Iraq. The reason? Saddam Hussein allegedly had weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, and was working with terrorists. That claim, repeated by Vice President Dick Cheney and Secretary of State Colin Powell at the United Nations, became the central justification for war. But WMDs were never found. U.S. intelligence had been cherry-picked, exaggerated, or just flat out wrong. A Senate report later concluded that the Bush administration had relied on bad intel and sometimes even manipulated it. The Iraq War became one of the longest and most controversial in American history. Over 4,000 U.S. troops were killed, and estimates of Iraqi civilian deaths range in the hundreds of thousands. And while Bush was criticized for misleading the world, the next administration would face backlash for what it was secretly doing to the American people. Barack Obama's presidency was often described as scandal-free, at least in the traditional political sense. But two major controversies challenged that narrative. First, in 2013, former NSA contractor Edward Snowden leaked classified documents revealing the scope of U.S. government surveillance. The NSA was collecting phone records, email metadata, and internet activity from millions of Americans without warrants. The revelations sparked a national debate about privacy and civil liberties. Laws were later reformed, but trust was broken. Second, Obama greatly expanded the use of drone warfare, including signature strikes that targeted individuals based on patterns of behavior rather than confirmed identity. While it was efficient in taking out terrorist targets, it also resulted in civilian casualties, including U.S. citizens. Obama defended both programs as necessary to combat modern threats, but critics saw them as examples of unchecked executive power. And that criticism would only grow louder in the next administration, where the scandals wouldn't be hidden behind classified documents, but would unfold live in full view of the public. Donald Trump's presidency was marked by a nonstop stream of scandals. But two stood out. The first came in 2019 when Trump was caught pressuring Ukraine's president to investigate Joe Biden's son, Hunter, while withholding $400 million in military aid. This led to his first impeachment for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. He was acquitted by the Senate. Then came January 6, 2021. After months of claiming the 2020 election was rigged, Trump urged his supporters to march on the Capitol. The result was a violent insurrection that disrupted the certification of the Electoral College. 5 people died. Lawmakers hid in fear. The Capitol was breached for the first time since 1814. Trump was impeached again, the only president in U.S. history to be impeached twice. But presidential scandals didn't start in the 21st century. Some of the most consequential ones happened generations earlier, and the damage they caused still echoes today. On August 4, 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson announced that North Vietnamese forces had attacked U.S. Navy ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. Congress responded with the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, essentially giving Johnson the authority to wage war in Vietnam without a formal declaration. But the second attack never happened. Declassified NSA documents later confirmed that there was no enemy activity on August 4th. Johnson had used a manufactured incident to justify full-scale war. What followed was nearly a decade of conflict, over 58,000 American deaths, and a deeply divided nation. It was a scandal not just of war, but of trust, a theme that would reappear decades later during another national crisis. Long before Watergate, the Teapot Dome scandal shocked the nation. In the early 1920s, Harding's Secretary of Interior, Albert Fall, leased federal oil reserves in Teapot Dome, Wyoming, and other sites to private companies in exchange for personal loans, cash, and cattle. Fall became the first cabinet member in U.S. history to be convicted of a felony. Harding denied involvement but died suddenly in 1923 before the full scope of the scandal became public. His administration was later revealed to be riddled with corruption, from the Veterans Bureau to the Justice Department. And while Teapot Dome set the standard for government corruption, the next scandal is more ambiguous. Not because of what was done, but because of what might have been known. December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, killing over 2,400 Americans and launching the U.S. into World War II. But over the years, some have speculated that FDR may have known the attack was coming and allowed it to happen to unite the country behind the war. Most historians reject this theory, citing the lack of direct evidence. Still, it's true that multiple intelligence warnings were missed or ignored, and diplomatic tensions with Japan were at a breaking point. Whether by negligence or fog of war confusion, the attack exposed just how vulnerable even the most powerful presidency could be. Scandals don't always end presidencies, but they always reveal something deeper. About the office, about power, and about the people who wield it. And as long as the presidency exists, so will the temptation to test its limits.